Hearthstone has almost been out for 8 years, and I thought it would be really cool to go look back at how weak the cards were in Classic compared to now, and by now I mean Fractured and Alterac Valley just released. But Rarran, how are you going to compare a Classic card to a Standard card? Well, you fantastic looking viewer, the way I'm going to do this is by picking what I believe is the best minion and spell for each mana cost there is in Hearthstone and comparing the two. I just want to add, for Standard cards, this was extremely difficult because a lot of the cards are really good, so this could be up to interpretation, but let me know what you think of my decisions for the best card currently in Standard. For 0 mana in Classic, I'm picking Shadow Step. I think Shadow Step is just an extremely valuable card that can be used for tempo or value, and its flexibility is what makes it such a powerful card. It's also currently being used in Standard Hearthstone, so that kind of showcases how great this card actually is. For Standard, I'm picking Lightning Bloom. A 0 mana gain 2 mana crystals is really powerful, and as this is being used to ramp up or cheat out more expensive things, this has been a very good card in Standard. For when it comes to minions in Classic, there's only one 0 mana minion, which is the Wisp, so nothing really to say about that. In Standard, we have the Murloc Tinyfin, which is clearly superior to Wisp, so obviously Standard takes the advantage for 0 mana cards. Now, Classic 1 mana spells were actually pretty decent, but I think the best one overall was Conceal, which was 1 mana, give your minions stealth until your next turn, which was a rogue spell. This card was so good because you could set up an Edwin Van Cleef or a Gadgetzan Auctioneer and basically make sure they're entirely safe because there wasn't that much great removal against stealth minions. As good as Conceal was, it does not even come close to Secret Passage, which is 1 mana, replace your hand with 4 cards from your deck. This card is insane and it's only 1 mana. Just compare those two real fast. When it comes down to minions, I think the best 1 mana minion by far in Classic was Mana Worm, a 1 mana 1/3 minion. Whenever you cast a spell, gain +1 attack for Mage. This card was in every tempo Mage deck and can just snowball out of control and win the game for you. Now for Standard, there is so many good 1-drops. It was so hard to pick one, so I decided to go with one that I think is just arguably always great, which is Wand Thief, a 1 mana 1/2 minion for both Rogue and Mage. Combo, discover a Mage spell. So I picked Wand Thief because of how flexible it is. It's super easy to use. It can get you a card for value or killing potential or anything in between. This card has been used since it's released, and it probably will be until it's rotated out. For the 2 mana spell for Classic, I'm literally picking probably one of the best cards of all time, which is 2 mana Wild Growth. Back in Classic, this card was the go-to mulligan basically for every single matchup because getting this card on 2 was just so freaking powerful. It basically won you the game on its own. So the 2 mana spell for Standard that I'm picking is Perpetual Flame, but again, I think there's so many good decisions to make for Standard right now that it's so hard to just pick one card that's great. That's what I'm noticing about Classic, is that it seems to be for each specific mana cost, there's one card that really stands out and a lot of them are kind of whatever, where in Standard right now, there's so many different options that are also powerful. For the 2 mana minion in Classic, I'm going with Knife Juggler, a 2 mana 3/2 neutral. After you summon a minion, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. This card back in Classic, because removal wasn't as good, was so good to keep board and get that extra damage in an aggro deck. It maintained its pressure throughout a lot of expansions until they ended up nerfing it. Just like all the other categories for Standard, this is a really hard decision because there's so many good 2-drops in the game. I'm just picking Ram Commander because it's so much stats for 2 mana and it's a pretty decent card. It seems like the 2-drops in this game are very catered to specific things, where Knife Juggler was just a straight up good card. Like Harbor Scam, for example, is a really powerful card. So is the Razor Boar, but again, they're all so good in Standard. For the Classic spell, I'm picking what I believe is still the strongest spell of all time printed, Ice Block, 3 mana Mage Seeker. Whenever your hero takes fatal damage, prevent it and become immune this turn. This card is still played in Wild. Just take that in for a second. That's a good card right there. Where in Standard, I'm actually just going to straight up say Incanter's Flow is still the strongest 3-drop in the game for spells. It is just way too good of a card. For the 3-drop minion for Classic, I'm picking Edwin Van Cleef as a 3 mana 2/2 combo, gain +2/+2 for each card played earlier this turn. This card was extremely dominant in its time during the Classic set, as well as when it was in Standard. It won almost every single world championship. I'm picking Defias Cannoneer as my Standard pick. This card is the definition of power creep on a 3-drop. It's just extremely good and feels extremely overtuned. For the minion in classic, I'm obviously picking Leroy Jenkins as a 4 mana 6/2 neutral minion. Charge, Battlecry, summon 2/1/1 whelps for your opponent. The amount of OTKs done with this card made it a staple in so many decks, and it was completely dominant throughout a lot of the time it was in standard until it was nerfed and then rotated. As good as Leroy was, it required a lot of cards, where Drekthar is just an extremely powerful effect and gains you so much tempo, especially on turn 4. This card is insanely powerful. Up until this point, Classic has kind of matched the power level of Standard, but this is where you start to see the power creep of Standard really shine. Now, Swipe is the card that I'm obviously picking for the Classic spell. This card was just used throughout its lifespan, and then it was eventually rotated out. This card was really good because Druids sometimes lacked reach if it didn't have a board. But you know what's better than Swipe is gaining 2 empty mana crystals with Overgrowth. This card has seen continuous play since its release, and I can't wait for it to be rotated out into Wild. For the 5 mana minion for Classic, I picked Doomguard, which is a 5/7 charge demon with the battle cry of discarding 2 random cards. You could also pick Gadgets and Auctioneer here. Both of them I think would have been a great decision. Both of them are good, but they're not better than a 0 mana 4/5 with Rush, which is the Wild Paw Null that we're currently seeing in Fracture and Alterac Valley. This card is insane compared to these two. For the 5 mana spell in Classic, I'm picking Nourish, which is choose 1, gain 2 mana crystals, or draw 3 cards. I also think Brawl is a pretty good decision here, but compared to Arbor Up, which is the card I'm picking for Standard, these cards don't even match. Nourish isn't bad, but my god, Arbor Up's insane. For the 6 cost minion, I'm picking Savannah Highmane, which is the 6/5 Hunter Beast Death Rattle, summon 2/2/2 hyenas. JK, it's Boulder Fist Ogre, baby, long live the king. If that's the king, then Janice is our queen, because my god, for 6 mana, this card is absolutely bonkers. For the 6 mana spell, I'm picking Force of Nature for Classic, which was summon 3 2/2 treants with charge that die at the end of the turn. Now, this card doesn't seem that powerful, but paired with Savage War, it was 14 damage from hand, which was really good. Yeah, that's good, but I mean, I'm just gonna put this card up. I think it says enough without me saying anything. Next, for the minions, we have Ancient of Lore, a 5/5 druid minion. Choose 1, draw 2 cards, or restore 5 health. This card was actually regarded as one of the best 7-drops, if not the best 7-drop in Classic. You know what's better than drawing 2 cards is drawing 3 cards and summoning them and getting a 3/6. That's pretty sick. For Classic spell, I'm picking Flame Strike as the best one for 7 mana. This is only doing 4 damage, by the way. They buffed it to do 5 damage in the core set. Now, that board removal is pretty good, but what about Soul Mirror? It's like Flame Strike, but way better. Classic strong, right, guys? Right? Anyone? Okay, I think this is a great moment to kind of discuss, was Classic bad, or is the current level of power just too high up? When Classic was first designed, it was designed as a complete game, so everything can balance each other out, where expansions are just adding additional resources into the game, so it becomes a lot harder to sell that if they're on the same power level as Classic. So I don't think it's necessarily wrong to power creep the game, but it has to be in such a tame manner that it doesn't feel just absolutely absurd playing or with these specific types of cards. But obviously, comparing Classic to what Standard is right now is just insane to look at, and it's kind of fun too. So I hope you guys ended up enjoying it, and if you did, I would really appreciate a like and a subscription, and I'll see you guys in the next one.